Hello everyone, welcome back into the studio here in Florence, Italy. My name is Eirik, and today we're going to be casting in the mold we made of our sculpture of Michelangelo's Young Slave. The sculpture we made here in a 3-part series on Patreon, and the mold we've made as well out of silicone and plaster, also here on Patreon. It's a pretty simple 2-part mold, and we're going to be casting inside of it using a technique called open-faced casting, where the mold is laying open while we work inside of it. We'll be using plaster for the casting itself, which is a cheap and versatile material that we'll talk more about later. Let's get into it. Like this, open on the table, is the way this mold is going to be positioned during most of our work here today. This is called open-faced casting since the mold is laying open during most of the process and only is closed much closer towards the end. Since the casting is tall and narrow, I worry that it could break around the narrower parts of the ankles and the calves. This is a standing figure, of course, and this is a typical problem when casting standing figures, and usually we need a little bit of reinforcement inside the casting in form of a metal wire or a threaded rod. There is a hole in the mold where the external armature wire that supported the weight of the figure, so we didn't need to attach the legs into the wooden base, comes out of the mold. There's a hole there. Our mold therefore has a hole in it where this wire was, and we do of course have to fill it somehow since we don't want a hole in our casting as well. Once the mold is closed, we do pour liquid material into the mold, and if the hole is not plugged, then of course that liquid plaster will flow through this hole and make a mess. Filling the hole is simple and can be done with clay. I prefer water-based clay here since it's nice and soft and doesn't push the silicone around. The mold has been prepared and we're ready to begin. There is a separate video going over materials and mixing plaster linked in the video description below and on the Patreon page, so if you haven't worked with plaster before, then I suggest checking that video out first. The first thing we're going to do is called a plaster splash coat. It's exactly what it sounds like. It's plaster brushed inside the mold to capture the details of the silicone. The silicone, of course, being the negative form of our sculpture, and this plaster splash coat will represent the positive surface of our eventual casting. It's called a splash coat because back in the day they would take plaster and use their hands to sort of throw the plaster onto or into the mold, splashing the plaster essentially on there. We're not doing that since I don't really have a space that I'm willing to sacrifice and make such a mess in. And because our sculpture is so small that most of the plaster throwing would probably miss the mark anyway, the actual old school splash coat technique was better suited for bigger works. So instead we're going to be brushing the plaster into the mold. Having said that though, it's not really brushing because when you brush plaster you don't get a decent thickness so easily. Instead, I sort of take the plaster on the edge of my brush and I sort of dab it onto the surface. This lets me build up thickness a lot easier and makes it much less likely that I take plaster that was laid down well and sort of drag it around, which happens when you brush. Especially for the subsequent buildup of thickness, this is a bit of a crime, and brushing is going to do more harm than good, I think. Maybe for like the first initial layer, it's okay to brush, but I do prefer to dab it on. Speaking of thickness, I'm trying to build up even thickness all throughout the mold, and the thickness of this splash coat should be so thick that the color of the silicone no longer shows through the plaster. That's minimum, but you don't really want it much thicker than that. High points inside the mold are a key culprit to watch out for here. Little mountain ridges and tops inside the mold in the silicone will usually end up much thinner because the plaster sort of flows down, and the depths and the valleys inside the mold will get more plaster in them. So pay careful attention that this doesn't become an issue and keep those mountaintops well covered in plaster as well. Notice that during this layer and every subsequent layer as well, I'm going to be very careful to work cleanly. Working clean means I'm working slowly and methodically, making sure the material, the plaster, ends up where I'd like it to end up and not everywhere else, not on the table or on the outside of the mold. So inside the mold, of course, but more specifically, inside the mold and not on the edge of the silicone where the two molds are eventually going to come together when we close the mold. It's not that if any plaster does get on this top edge, usually I'm going to call this the silicone edge, it's not that if plaster gets on there that we can't fix it or get rid of it. However, if we do try to get rid of plaster on the edge and that plaster is connected to the plaster inside the mold, it becomes very hard to control where the break happens when we try to snap off the plaster on the edge. And this leads to, more often than not, plaster inside the mold chipping or breaking off along with the plaster on the edge that we'd like to get rid of. As teased above, the next step is going to be burlap. Burlap is an open weave fabric, a cheap utilitarian fabric, which we're going to use as reinforcement embedded inside the plaster to give the casting much more strength and help keep it more resistant to cracks and shattering. Consider burlap like rebar in concrete. It's the thing that actually makes this plaster strong and will allow you to make things with much less plaster and at much greater strength. The burlap is pre-cut so that I don't have to rush and do it while the plaster is setting up. There is a timing aspect to plaster, which means that I need to add burlap at a certain time, the right time, and if it's too late, it'll struggle to bond properly to the splash coat we already laid down, and if it's too soon, it'll sort of damage the splash coat. Therefore, cutting the burlap before you begin is best practice, especially if you're working on larger things and need tons of burlap. So plaster has a timing aspect to it, which means that once you start here, it's best not to walk away from the work. You need to keep going as the plaster goes through its stages. It's time for the burlap when the splash coat is firm to the touch, but before it starts warming up. Plaster warms up as it goes through a chemical stage where it releases moisture, and this is what makes the plaster hard eventually. Now, when I say chemical stage, it's not something dangerous or anything like that, it's just a chemical reaction, right? Nothing to worry about. No chemicals in the air or anything crazy like that. By catching the plaster at the right time, after it's firm but before it starts heating up, you can add more layers of plaster to it, and the two layers will stick really well without the risk of damaging the first layer. And I assume they chemically bond as opposed to only mechanically bonding, which would be the case if the plaster was dry already. If the plaster starts heating up, more moisture is dissipated and the plaster tends to draw moisture out from new plaster that you add to it, therefore leaving you with this sort of dry plaster powder on the surface when you brush fresh plaster on, and this leading to not a good bond between layers. If you have old plaster and need to add new plaster, you can spray water on the plaster to mitigate this issue, but the bond will never be as good as if we do it with the correct timing in mind. In order to make sure the burlap layer functions the way it's intended to, we really need to make sure that we overlap every piece of fiber with the one that came before it. This ensures that the layer of burlap is one continuous layer, and without this feature, it's likely that a crack will or can develop where the layer wasn't overlapped. Imagine you want the burlap layer to function as a unit, and the only way to do that is to make sure that every piece is connected to each other. To this extent, make sure that you work from one side to the other. In a vertical piece like this, you would work top to bottom or bottom to top, and in some pieces you might work side to side, but that's up to you. Work methodically through the piece, covering ground as you go. Don't skip areas and think you'll come back to them, because it's very likely that you'll get lost in the plaster or forget about it completely, leaving you with a weak spot in your casting. The burlap should be added to the edge and perhaps a few millimeters away from the edge as well. Do not let the burlap go over the silicone edge, because if you do, the mold won't close. Burlap with plaster is strong, and this will mean very annoying work for you removing the plaster infused burlap that's sticking over the edge in order for you to be able to close your mold. Don't forget about the aluminum pole. While plaster and burlap together is pretty strong, there is usually a weak spot in a piece like this, a vertical figure piece. And in order to ensure no cracks or breaks at the thin calves and ankles, we're going to insert a metal rod that we bent at the beginning of the video. This rod still fits nicely, since the only thing we've done is take the same surface we had in silicone and extend it upwards slightly. The metal will travel from the bottom all the way to the top of the figure and will add some stiffness in the longest direction of the piece, hopefully keeping any chance of flexing from ever taking place. The pole is held in place in 3 spots in a very familiar way to those of you who have seen the video we did on making the mold that we're casting in here, which I of course suggest you watch first. We're going to hold the aluminum pole in place using burlap and plaster. We'll attach it in a few spots to keep it from moving around accidentally. Thank you for watching until the end of the video. If you liked what you saw, consider liking and subscribing to the channel. If you want to see more, check out my Patreon page, linked in the description below the video. Until next time, stay creative.